Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular board meeting of Wednesday, August the 25th, 2021. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, and we are convening this meeting based on our new bylaws, so we'll be going back and forth, and we ask for your patience as we manage the meeting through virtually through technology. So at first, I would move that we convene the meeting of the Committee of the Whole closed session. So we'll now move into closed session, and only those that trustees that would be part of the closed session will sign on to the closed session part of the meeting. Just waiting and giving everyone an opportunity to sign in again, so it might take a couple of minutes. And some people are experiencing some difficulty with sound, so we'll try to rectify that as well. All right, I think we have everyone. And again, just to explain the process so that people aren't confused, we are participating under the new bylaws, and it's really the first time that we sort of are really together in virtually under the new bylaws. So it's going to take some time for us to adjust to all of these things. And so what we're doing is we were in closed session committee of the whole. We're now returning to the regular meeting of the board. As we return to the regular meeting of the board, I would like to rise and report on items of the committee of the whole closed session. These items pertain to personnel appointment matters. I would now like to convene into committee of the whole open session. We now have the regular meeting of the board, and if we could please rise for our acknowledgement and national anthem, and please turn off your camera while this occurs.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada.
I would like to start this evening's meeting by providing a huge warm welcome to our new Director of Education, Ms. Rashmi Swarup. We are thrilled to have you with us at Peel and know that the rich experiences, knowledge, and commitment to positive relationships that you bring with you will serve the students, parents, staff, and community of the Peel District School Board well. Welcome, Director Swarup. Director Swarup will have an opportunity to speak to you in a few moments. Once again, this evening, the trustees will be asking questions on the reports by staff. All questions by the trustees can be placed in the chat, and I will facilitate asking them and identifying the trustee who has raised the question. We're now on item number 4 of the agenda. Approval of the agenda. The following reports have been added or revised. 7.1 retirements and addendum page has been added. 15.3, review of policy 27, naming of schools, has been added. And 15.7, ministry approval of 2021-2022 school year calendars. Having made those amendments to the agenda, I now approve the agenda as amended. I have no conflict of interest to declare this evening. And we're now on to staff recognition. I would like to acknowledge all our retirees and thank them for their many years of dedicated service to the Peel District School Board. We wish you every success in your future endeavors. The following are the retirees for this month: Michael Abraham, Trish Adams, Susan Ashby Nagy, Karen Bafaro, Pamela Baird, Sonia Bonicki, Doug Borg, Beverly Campbell, Virginia Corona, Angelica Donnelly, Rosemary Dubik, Adelaida Encarnacion, Sue Fraley, Nancy Gibson, Linda Gilstrom, Anne-Marie Garcia, Nick Greco, Daniel Green, Christine Groom, Teresa Colbuck, Betsy Labar, Marianne Lowe, Bozina Mikovic, Patricia Mohaber, Michelle Moore, Wendy Mundy, Kent Murray, William Murray, Tara Nasser, Norman Ing, Kathleen Potter, Irma Quintal, Anna Rodriguez, Samuel Soro, Linda Shaw, Lynn Snyder, Branka Stojanovic, Maxine Stuckey, Helena Sobolski, Lorna Taylor, Mark Thompson, Jill Trafford, Kathy Turkey, Wendy Valentin, Maria Villanova, Cynthia Warren, Deborah Will Dryden, Julie Carter, Nadine Cherry, Carmelina Longo, Malabika Ray, Bernadette Sampeth, and Heidi Shaw. Again, congratulations to each of you and wish you every success in your future endeavors. Now moving on to the appointment of the Peel District School Board Director of Education. You have before you a report about the new Director of Education, Ms. Rashmi Swarup. I formally appoint Ms. Rashmi Swarup as the Director of Education for the Peel District School Board, effective August 16th, 2021. Usually we would also entertain a report from the student trustees. However, this evening I'd like to introduce our new student trustees, and if they could turn on their cameras if they're on virtually. Earlier this evening, we were fortunate to have a virtual student trustee orientation for our two new student trustees, Selena Zhao and Deepanita Sen. That session was supported and hosted by their mentors, Trustee Crocker and Trustee Sohi. Thank you for taking on this incredible responsibility of service. We look forward to working with you throughout the school year. Welcome, Selena and Deepanita. We have no reports this evening from trustees assigned to external organizations. And that leads us on to now inviting Director Swarup to present her report. Welcome, Director Swarup.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Good evening, trustees, colleagues, students, families, and community members. My name is Rashmi Swarup, and it is my pleasure to formally introduce myself as the Director of Education for the Peel District School Board. As someone who has dedicated her career to education, it is an honor and a privilege to be speaking to you today in my new role. Before joining Peel District School Board, I held numerous positions at the Toronto District School Board and York Region District School Board, including that of educator, curriculum lead, vice principal, principal, and superintendent of education. And most recently, I've had the privilege of serving as the vice president of digital learning and education partnerships at TVO, Ontario's educational broadcaster. In addition to my positions in Canada, I've also worked within education systems in India and the Middle East, and I've studied education systems from around the world. And through this experience, I recognize many strengths within the Peel District School Board, as well as transformational opportunities that are available to PDSB. Equity, well-being, leadership, and learning are integral to my work as an education leader. I identify as a racialized, immigrant, South Asian woman for whom English is a second language. I face structural inequities, and these experiences have ignited my desire and commitment to effect real change. As noted in my first message to staff and families last week, in preparation for my role, I've conducted a thorough review of the Peel District School Board's journey to disrupt and eliminate anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Asian racism, anti-South Asian racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, homophobia, ableism, and all other forms of discrimination and oppression. I recognize the trauma, human rights violations, and system inequities induced by racism and discrimination, especially towards Black and Indigenous students. I applaud the work of my predecessor and colleagues who began this important work. I agree with them and members of the community that there's still much more to be done as individuals and as a team. In this regard, I look forward to continuing the implementation of the ministry's directives and working alongside the associate directors, senior team members, board of trustees, and staff members to eradicate systemic racism, especially anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism. And together with students, parents, community allies, and trustees, we can all work to ensure that no student or staff member faces oppression or discrimination within the board. This is not new territory for me. I've always worked with racialized communities and have been dedicated and committed to eliminate all forms of racism and other forms of oppression. I will continue to do so as Peel District School Board's Director of Education. Leadership for me is about building relationships by listening to all voices, understanding divergent perspectives, and then acting to effect real change. My approach is to lead with integrity, empathy, transparency, and accountability. As such, I aim to inspire leadership that cultivates an equitable and inclusive learning organization where students, staff, and community voices are heard, perspectives considered, values recognized, and diversity is celebrated. Throughout my work, I commit to staying true to my leadership orientation, which is inclusive and deeply rooted in anti-colonial, anti-racist, and anti-oppression approaches. I'll be highly visible and transparent, and I will regularly consult with trustees, staff, students, families, and community. And I'll also hold myself to the same level of accountability that I expect from the staff I lead. My approach will always be first and foremost to listen and learn. I will strive to foster an environment at the PDSB where student voices are amplified, as I believe that student well-being and achievement are inextricably linked. I'll operate under a student-centered philosophy, which puts students at the forefront of planning and decision-making. Listening and responding to community needs is critical as it builds trust and nurtures an authentic connection and an unwavering commitment to be there for every student, school, and parent in the best way I can. And like any leader, I know I cannot do this alone and that I do not have all the answers. The journey ahead will be difficult and not without challenges. But as I always say, difficult things take time. Impossible things take a little longer time. That's why I'm eager to work alongside you, staff, students, families, and community members and trustees here in Peel, where I live and now work. I look forward to this next chapter, where together we have the opportunity to effect change in our educational institutions, create equitable learning outcomes for all Peel District School Board students, and help to shape the next generation of brilliant young minds. I'm hopeful that together we will continue to build upon the strong foundation that has been set. Together we will create equitable, caring, and inclusive learning environments that will serve as a foundation for improved outcomes for each and every student so that they can reach their highest potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Swarup. We too look forward to working with you and are excited to have you with us. Moving on to item number 12.1, resolution resigning officers. The report that has been presented is, I think, fairly straightforward, and I approve the recommended slate of signing officers to have authority to sign on behalf of the Peel District School Board in accordance with the board bylaws and the statutes of Ontario. This list will replace all previously approved signatories effective immediately. Moving on to item number 13, 1, 2, and 3. I approve the minutes of the regular board from June 16th, 2021, and the special meetings of the board from June 29th, 2021, and July 6th, 2021. Items 14.1 and 14.2, I'm in receipt of the minutes of the Special Education Advisory Committee from May 10th, 2021, and the recommendations of the Special Education Advisory Committee from May 10th, 2021. Item number 15.1, staff reports. Number 15.1, COVID-19 update number 9, Family Learning Choice Survey, Operational Guidance 2021-2022, and Ventilation Update. Director Swarup.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask System Superintendent, Student Re-engagement and Pandemic Response, Claudine Scaccato, to present the report.
Thank you, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. I'm pleased to share with you tonight a brief overview of the written report on Family Learning Choice Survey, Operational Guidance, and a Ventilation Update that will be shared by Controller John Hartsema. The Peel Family Learning Choice Survey was launched on July 15th, and the initial deadline of July 29th was extended to August 5th to allow families the time to review ministry guidance and make an informed decision based on our local health context. The chart shared in the report summarizes the number of students who opted for in-person and online learning, along with the variance for the 2020, 2021, and 2021-2022 school years. It shares over a 30% increase from online to in-person in elementary, and almost a 7% increase in secondary from online to in-person. Next, as a part of our ongoing commitment to student, staff, and community safety, Peel District School Board will continue to implement our updated enhanced safety measures and operating procedures. The Staff Operating Procedure 2021-2022 reopening plans was created in alignment with the COVID-19 health, safety, and operational guidance released by the ministry on August 3rd and updated on the 13th. Our operating procedures has been updated following the guidance of Peel Public Health, whose recommendations are developed to increase the levels of safety for students, staff, and our greater community. Through our ongoing collaboration with Peel Public Health and our dedication to the safety and well-being of students, staff, and the community, our enhanced safety measures operating procedures took a more vigilant approach to enhanced safety protocols in some areas, some of which have been shared in the chart in the report. I would like to note that all of our enhanced safety protocols have developed through collaborations with Peel Public Health, and as we learn more, these measures will change and be updated and modified to reflect the changing landscape of the pandemic, including some of those shared in the report. These changes happen frequently and will be communicated to the schools, our community, trustees, and the system. I would now like to ask Controller John Hartsema to share the ventilation update.
Thank you, Claudine, and thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The section of the report on ventilation is an update on the ongoing work and air quality improvements last reported on at the June regular meeting of the board. It summarizes those activities or enhancements delivered over the 2021 school year. In addition, the work is underway on the investment of over $20 million for the installation of in-duct air treatment systems in all heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems across Peelschools and facilities. Further to these improvements, and in preparation for the 2021-22 school year, the following enhancements are in progress or have been completed. As part of renewal, the replacement of approximately $15 million of HVAC systems in Peel. The full reinspection and preventative maintenance of all heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems prior to our reopening of schools. Service and filtration on all of the 1,140 standalone HEPA filtration units in our system. The installation of an additional 1,800 standalone HEPA units to support our kindergartens and additional spaces in non-ventilated schools as directed by the ministry. And finally, the implementation of a standardized school ventilation report for Peelschools to be posted on the board's website to enhance transparency for the community, staff, and students. Each of these actions and the ventilation improvements are part of the ongoing efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and improve the air quality in Peel facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Comptroller Hartzmer, and thank you, Superintendent Sakato. Just a few questions. One from a couple from Trustee Lawton. First one is, will there be any consideration of ventilation upgrade for schools without a traditional HVAC system, given the age of these older buildings?
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Through you to the trustee, we continue to update HVAC systems at schools where possible and ventilation in some spaces. However, our renewal funding does not support adding ventilation. Also, we have to consider that in addition, older schools that were not designed with ventilation systems don't have the space or the infrastructure to support that kind of work and the associated ductwork that it would require.
Thank you, Comptroller Hertzma. Second question from Trustee Lawton. Have the standalone units that have been provided and have had MERV 13 filters installed the only option for the older buildings, or are there plans for more substantial overhauls, upgrades to take place over the coming months so that all PDSB schools have mechanical HVAC systems?
Thank you. The renewal of HVAC systems continues to be a priority for the board. These projects generally take about 12 to 18 months from design to completion, and the majority of the construction occurs over the summer months. In addition, equipment deliveries have extended that period. So while staff will continue to prioritize HVAC as part of the overall renewal, the addition of HEPA filtration units will be the primary equipment in those non-ventilated spaces.
Thank you, Comptroller. A couple more. Another one from Trustee Lawton. It is noted that school offices will be receiving standalone filtration units as per new ministry guidelines, as will work office spaces. Would these include spaces occupied by special education and ESL teachers and students?
The standalone HEPA units that are being supplied are being deployed in accordance with the ministry direction. As such, they're being installed in schools with non-ventilated main or general offices, shared department offices, and seminar rooms identified for student learning. So we'll continue to work closely with the ministry and Peel Public Health for any changes in that direction.
Okay. And will PDSB be using CO2 monitors to assess air quality when classrooms are fully occupied?
No, we will not be utilizing CO2 monitors in classrooms, as they're not part of the overall ventilation improvements identified and directed by the ministry in reducing the spread of COVID-19 in our schools. Instead, we focused on filtration and upgraded all system filters in both quality and frequency that they'll be changed. And we've also are proceeding with the induct air treatment that I mentioned earlier that will dramatically improve the air quality and help in the reduction of all viruses and the spread of COVID-19 specifically.
Thank you, Controller Hertzma. It's very helpful. Question from Trustee Kathy McDonald. For the extracurricular activities, will there be mixing of cohorts? And if yes, what will happen if students from two different cohorts have a COVID positive test? On page 6, is there a list of schools that have had upgrades, replacements to the HVAC systems in terms of the $15 million that it speaks to?
Well, part of that question, I think, will be Superintendent Sciccato. So perhaps I'll jump ahead with the ventilation question. And a list of those schools can be provided. It would have been in the report that trustees would have received, their renewal report for their individual schools. They would have been identified in that report. And the latest version of that report was provided to trustees in late June.
Thank you, Controller Hertzma. Superintendent Sciccato.
Yes, through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, and thank you for the question, Trustee McDonald. Yes, students from different cohorts will be mixing through during extracurricular activities. Through our operating procedures, we have shared a protocol with educators who are running those, who have to complete screening protocols and take attendance. In the case of a positive test, we would follow our outbreak management, which is currently being aligned with Peel Public Health, and then we would have to, depending on vaccination status, isolate students and follow our protocol that is continuing to be developed as we speak.
Thanks to both of you, to your teams, and certainly to the senior administrative team as well for all of your work. We recognize how difficult this time is in terms of the work that you're doing. One further question from Trustee Kathy McDonald: How can you get the list of schools not in our individual report? Is that available, Controller?
Yes, and thank you for that clarification to Trustee McDonald. I can provide that summary of those locations that make up the 15 million to simplify it for trustees so that they're aware of each of those sites.
Great. Thanks, Controller. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you very much.
As I was saying, your work is tremendous with you and your teams, and I know how difficult it is during this time, especially with the reopening. So really look forward to seeing it work and implement and move smoothly in the next few weeks. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 15.2, the Human Rights Office at PDSB. Director Swarup.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask Executive Lead of Human Rights, Jessica Jesudasan, to share the report.
Thank you, Director Swarup, and good evening, Supervisor Rodriguez. Through you, this report introduces a minor revision to Human Rights Policy 51 to reflect a change in name from the Human Rights Commissioner's Office presently to the Human Rights Office. This change is intended to reflect a more accurate composition of the Human Rights Office, which does not consist of a Human Rights Commissioner role. It also coincides with a change in our physical location to an off-site location, which addresses the concerns that were raised in the ministry's review regarding PDSB community members not being able to confidentially and discreetly access the Human Rights Office while it was located at the Central Board office. So we have moved, we will be moving our physical location off-site effective September 1st, 2021, just up the street from Central Board office to 200 Matheson Boulevard West. While we do remain closed for engagement with the public during COVID-19, we look forward to being able to engage with the community in person when it's safe and appropriate to do so. We also intend on submitting an interim procedure, which will replace the current operating procedure under Human Rights Policy 51, which further addresses the concerns that were raised in the ministry's review. And that interim procedure will serve as the basis or the foundation for a full revision of Human Rights Policy 51 and its operating procedure, which will include appropriate community and stakeholder consultation.
Thank you, Officer Jesse Desson. Not sure if there are any questions, trustees, for Human Rights Officer. One from Trustee McDonald. How can you get, when an HR complaint is filed and a report generated, who has the right to access the report? And secondly, what steps are been taken to ensure that all reports are kept confidential? Will the office track who has access to any reports generated?
Thank you for the question, Trustee McDonald. Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. So when a human rights complaint is filed with the Human Rights Office, it does remain with our office. We are a confidential office, so it does not get disclosed unless it needs to be for the purpose of determining whether another complaint process is underway. But other than that, it is kept confidential between us and the complainant, and of course the respondent that is also implicated in that complaint. With respect to number two, what steps are being taken to ensure that all reports are kept confidential? Our office, as I said, is an independent and confidential office. Everything is kept internally with us. When we move off-site, all our files will be kept with us. Will the office track who has access to any reports generated? All investigation reports further to a human rights complaint that does proceed to investigation are kept and tracked and kept confidential through our office. Where allegations are substantiated, they do go to the Director of Education in accordance with our operating procedure. So that would be the level of confidentiality there with respect to a substantiated allegation.
And one further question, does the person filing the report have the right to a copy of the findings?
Yes, so thank you for the question, Trustee McDonald. So a person who's filing a complaint or filing a human rights complaint that does proceed to investigation does receive a substantive summary of our investigation report that sets out our findings and our conclusions while maintaining the confidentiality of witnesses and other parties that are involved in the investigation so that they're aware of how we reached our decision and the considerations we took into consideration in making our findings.
Officer Jesse Desson, thank you. Thank you for your report. I really appreciate the detail, and I'm sure we'll see a bit more of you as we kind of continue on with the year. I approve the revision to PDSB Human Rights Policy 51 to reflect a change in office departmental name from the Human Rights Commissioner's Office to the Human Rights Office at PDSB.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you. Moving on to 15.3. Naming of review of policy 27, naming of schools. Director Swarup.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will ask the Superintendent of Indigenous Education, Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression, and Community Partnerships, Superintendent Ford, to speak to the report.
Thank you, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. As noted, the report has two purposes. The first, to form a working group to review Policy 27 for a recommendation to board regarding changes to the policy through Directive 18. And second, to give the working group a mandate to engage a process of community consultation. Happy to take questions.
Yes. Thank you, Superintendent Ford, for the report. First question is from Trustee Dakrub. Do we expect that the renaming of Sir John A. Macdonald will be completed following the approval of the revised policy, or will we be able to proceed with the renaming working alongside our Indigenous communities in the meantime?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Dakrub. The intention of bringing this report to board is to ask that the working group can be struck through Directive 18, allowing them to do both pieces to, through a revision of the policy, ensure that a naming process can occur, and certainly, most certainly, that community consultation is a part of that process.
A question from Trustee Kathy McDonald. Are there any other schools slated for a name change at this time?
The school of concern, and that's been identified in the report, is the school located at 250 Sunny Street North in Brampton. Certainly, we anticipate that this would be a template. This process would be an opportunity to engage in enabling or responding to Directive 18, so that further examinations may occur.
Thank you, Superintendent Ford. I don't have any questions. I'm in receipt of the report on the review of Policy 27, and I approve the following resolutions. A, that staff be directed to form a working group to conduct an equity review of Policy 27, naming of schools, and provide a report to the board regarding amendments to Policy 27. And B, that the working group conduct a community consultation, the results of which shall be provided in a report to the board with respect to the naming of Sir John A. Macdonald Senior Public School, that shall include the school community, the school trustee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Moving on to item 15. Thank you again, Superintendent Ford. Moving on to item 15.4, third quarter financial reports as at May 31st, 2021. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I now ask Associate Director, Operations and Equity of Access, A.D. Gill, to speak to the report.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. You have in front of you the financial statements as of May 31st, 2021. So Controller Letitia, Charles, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Do the trustees have any questions about the third quarter financial reports? A.D. Gill, I went through the reports, and the only question that I really have is, given the fact that we are now at the third quarter and we'll be finishing, did you uncover any risks that the board is under, given our meeting the balanced budget based on the third quarter report?
Thank you, Super Rodriguez, for that question. No, we have not. And in fact, looking at our third quarterly financial statements, there does not appear to be any risk. In fact, in regards to the COVID-related expenses, that most of those expenses, they will be covered through the additional funding that the ministry provides to the school boards. There are some areas such as student transportation where some of the COVID expenses we may have to charge against our reserves, but overall be a small amount of the reserve that will be used for COVID expenses. Other than that, our financial statement, based on our financial statement as of May 31st, we do not anticipate to see any additional risks.
And secondly, A.D. Gill, did we see any decrease in the funding in terms of the ministry GSNs based on the fact of declining enrollment that we first submitted and where we ended up?
In fact, through Supervisor Rodriguez, in fact, the last year, ministry realizing that most of the enrollment decline that the school boards experienced last year was mainly not having the new immigration, and as well as related to the COVID situation. So the ministry decided not to reduce any funding based on enrollment declines last year, and the funding was mainly based on our enrollment of the previous year, in fact. So not only our board, but all school boards, there was no decline in funding based on the enrollment decline.
Thank you, A.D. Gill. Seeing no further questions, I'm in receipt of the third quarter financial reports as at May 31st, 2021, and look forward to getting the actual spending to end of year in a balanced budget. Item 15.5, notice of amendment to Peel District, School Board bylaw. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I now ask General Counsel Basanta to share the report.
Thank you, Director Swarup, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. This is a housekeeping item that's coming to board because of a amendment to Regulation 46397, Ontario Regulation 46397 under the Education Act. And essentially what it is a notice of motion in accordance with the new bylaws. So advance notice must be given at a previous board meeting for consideration to amend, repeal, or replace the bylaws at a subsequent board meeting. So the proposed amendment to the bylaws is indicated in your package, in your board report. And essentially, I believe this is a response to the pandemic that the certain provisions of the bylaws for trustees and others to be physically present are suspended, whether schools are closed or not, until November 15, 2022.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Yep. Thank you, General Counsel Basanta. Are there any questions from the trustees? I think it's a straightforward piece. Thank you again. I'm in receipt of notice to amend Bylaw 510.1 of the Peel District School Board bylaws.
Thank you.
Thanks, General Counsel Basanta. Item 15.6, OPSPA membership fee 2122. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I will now ask Associate Director Gill to speak to this report.
Yep. Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. So attached to the report is the invoice from OPSBA for the 21-22 membership fees. The fees for the next year is almost the same as the fees for this current year, and there's no change in the way the fees were calculated this year as compared to the last year. But I'm happy to respond to any questions if there are.
I don't have any questions on this. I think we asked some questions on the previous on a previous meeting about this that I received satisfactory responses to. Not sure if the trustees have any. All righty. Seeing none, I approve the payment of fee to the Ontario Public School Boards Association in the sum of $255,026 for the 21-22 school year. Thank you, Associate Director Gill, for that. Item 15.7, the Ministry approval of 2021-2022 school year calendars. Director Swaroop.
Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez, I now ask Associate Director Thiel to present the report.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. The board will recall that at the open session of the board on June 16th, 2021, the revisions to the proposed school year calendars for 2021-22 were approved by the board. Tonight, this report provides the formal approval that was received from the Ministry of Education, sent to our director, approving our school year calendars. So that will be there with the approval letters, updated calendars for our records. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, ADQ. Thank you for all your work on the school year calendar as well. I know it's complicated and difficult at times, so it's great that the ministry has provided the approval. I am in receipt of ministry approval of the 2021-2022 school year calendar. There is a question from Trustee Benjamin. Will trustees receive copies of the revised trustee handbook, updated chart of the leadership team, preferably in black and white, and the latest directions? Director Swaroop? General Counsel Basanta?
Thank you. Through you, Supervisor Rodriguez. We will be working on these matters for the next little while. And I have to get up to speed myself on them. So as we work through the beginning of the school year, we definitely will have the latest directions. I think, Trustee Benjamin, do you mean the governance directives? What do you mean the directions? So we can definitely get you the organizational chart.
We can follow up with the trustee to find out what's being requested. I think the org chart is an important one because there has been changes, and I think the trustees would appreciate knowing what those changes were and who sort of fits in which place. So I can see that as being something that can be passed along quite easily. And then I think if we need clarity on what's being requested, the others might be helpful.
Okay, happy to do that and follow up with the trustee offline. Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you so much, General Counsel. Moving on in the agenda, finally, trustee notices of motion. There is a motion, notice of motion that I will move, and we'll have an opportunity at the next meeting. This one really relates to the anti-Islamophobia piece. So let me just read it out to you, and it will be part of the minutes as well and will be sent out as well. Whereas hate crimes against members of the Muslim community have been on the rise in Canada, whereas recent events have had a significant impact on PDSB students and the broader community in the region of Peel, whereas the Peel District School Board is committed to equity, inclusion, and combating systemic discrimination, whereas Trustee Krug has raised these issues in the past and has requested accountability. Be it resolved that Peel District School Board commit to an anti-Islamophobia strategy, that staff report out on its efforts to develop an anti-Islamophobia strategy, specifically provide information on what, if any, actionable items and accountability measures are in place, including plans to regularly provide this information to the broader community. Be it further resolved that the Peel District School Board mandates anti-Islamophobia training for all staff, and be it further resolved that the Peel District School Board creates a committee tasked with oversight of the implementation of the strategy that consists of PDSB staff as well as community members. That's the notice of motion, and we will have an opportunity to see that at the next meeting. Having no further items on the agenda, thank you all for your participation this evening. And look forward to our next meeting. I would now like to adjourn our meeting and wish everyone a wonderful evening.